अभिनव मोडक यांनी 18 years ago they published a book named मुलांचा महाराष्ट्र, which also helps to encourage the love for this history into the people's mind. So here this book is actually has mentioned many eras, including how Muslims came and बहमनी राज्यांची स्थापना कैसे हुई, उसके बाद विजयनगर से युद्ध कैसे हुआ, उसके बाद how मराठी साम्राज्याचे उदय कसा झाला वगैरे वगैरे. Then till the end of Maratha Samraj after Panipat, and then this is I have just started. I'm not read completely, but this is nice book. Seems like.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Seems very interesting. Can you write the name of this book in the chat as well?
Sure.
Thank you. Maheshi?
Yes. Yeah, so this week I was supposed to be reading some another book, but it was too long and I wanted to have and I wanted to read it very properly and nicely, so I picked up another short book. ये book जो है ये this is written by Stephen Hawking, The Theory of Everything, and मैंने इसका सिर्फ एक पहला चैप्टर ही पढ़ा है अभी तक, which talks about the ideas of the creation of the universe. जैसे कैसे scientists या फिर even some religions or philosophies proposed that how the universe came into existence, how it was created, and what so how it was created and all. Like Aristotle proposed his one theory, and then even Greeks proposed their arguments, like the earth could be round, the earth could be elliptical. And after this, the book talks about Galileo, and he was the one to say that earth is, and he was the one who got famous to say that earth is not flat, but it is elliptical rather. But then he was put into house arrest, and the church didn't listen to his his argument. And then even some more scientists came up to say that the earth is not flat. And then this book says about that how the universe could have been come into existence, and then talks about some religions or some and it talks about some religious or theories that propose that how the universe came into existence and what was the beginning of the universe, like Jewish, Christian and Muslim traditions. ये सब बोलते हैं कि the earth is finite and not very distant time in the past. So इनका argument काफी limited होता है और it is not something very much accurate to propose that how exactly the universe could have come into existence. And then it talks more about the proofs, the theories that how it could have come into existence. And in the end, it concludes that one can say that God created the universe and everything, but it is meaningless to say that the universe could have been existent before the Big Bang. Like it can't come into existence or cannot be created before the Big Bang theory. So that's the conclusion of the first chapter, and I'll tell what is written in the next chapters in next week. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for sharing. So I'll share now what I've read. So I'm currently reading a book by Dr. Meenakshi Jain called Sati, Evangelicals, Baptist Missionaries, and Changing the Colonial Discourse. Obviously, Sati it's a very controversial topic, and it's often associated with Hinduism, and the narrative or leftists often say it is compulsory. Widows ko sati karna hi chahiye, or they were doing this, or they were forced into this. But if we're associating this with Hindu scriptures and Hinduism, we have to look at what the Hindu scriptures are actually saying about this. So Meenakshi Jain ने उन्होंने बहुत सारे Hindu scriptures का mention किया, and she has showed that the Rig Veda, for example, उसमें एक verse है, I don't remember which exact verse, but एक verse है जो widows के बारे में बात करता है, and obviously the people who translated this, the leftists who translated this verse, they made it seem as if this was promoting sati. If I find the verse, I'll send it in the group, but when this translation was obviously wrong, so when they translated again, this verse was something about a widow being near her husband, something like that, so it was not promoting. Yes, that's true, Vedant, that Rig Veda does support widow remarriage, and I'll talk about this more because even when it comes to Manu, who wrote the Manu Smriti, obviously that is also a very controversial book. Manu Smriti में भी इसका कोई mention नहीं है. Manu Smriti does not even mention sati, and obviously does not promote it. दूसरे जो scriptures हैं modern times के, जैसे यज्ञवल्क्य और काफी दूसरी स्मृतिज में widows के लिए rules, regulations और duties prescribed हैं, but उसमें usually sati का mention नहीं होता है, as what the author is stating. But there are some smritis where there is sati mentioned, but it is not in a sense that it is promoted. It's in a sense of that it's just mentioned because it was most likely occurring in those times. But usually जो widows के लिए rules हैं, regulations हैं, उनमें sati, it's not promoted. It has not been promoted, or it has not been written that we must do it in any of the scriptures. और बहुत important fact यह है कि सती के cases medieval times में इससे थे क्योंकि widows अपनी मर्जी से सती कर रहे थे. So it's not because somebody was forcing them, unlike what the narrative says. So far I've only read 2 chapters of this book, but I have to say that every Hindu must read this book because Dr. Meenakshi Jain, she has mentioned every source. She has done so much research on this, and generally it's truly a book that we need because they have made sati into this very controversial thing, and they have used it to defame Hinduism. And in reality, it was not supported by anybody. So that's the book I've read. Yeah. Vineet, I see that you are here. Do you want to share what you've read this week?
Okay. So, first of all, namaste everyone. I have not read anything as such in this week. I've watched a lot of documentaries. I don't think so it will match with the context that we are going into. So, yeah.
Were the documentaries related to history, something like that?
Nah, man, not at all. Because अभी मैं जानबूझ के अपने आप को डिस्टेंस कर रहा हूँ पॉलिटिक्स से एंड ये सारी चीजों से. I'm reading little bit about Ayurveda and side में I'm working and थोड़ा बहुत ये सब मैं देख रहा हूँ related to my work. Documentaries about filmmaking and art and these kind of things. So yeah, I don't think so इस चीज के बारे में अभी बात चल रही है. तो yeah, you guys can continue. जो discussion चल रहा है, I'm enjoying it.
Okay, if you see something like interesting, you can share in the resources group, even if it's a documentary. If you find it interesting, you can share it there.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, so I had a question for Sham. I read that essay that you had sent, and this is more about what is your personal opinion, because decoloniality, as the essay stated, that it is something that is has been misused, or we don't actually know what that term means, and we're just throwing it around. So I want to ask you in the context of Bharat, because we have people like J. Sai Deepak, जो इसे बार-बार promote करते हैं, but then we have people on the other end of the spectrum, like Abhijita Yamitra, who has clearly said online and in videos that he thinks that this reminds him of the Communist Manifesto. So my question to you is, Sham, that do you think that we are also misusing this when we're talking about decoloniality, Bharat ke context, in the context of Hindu community, or do you think that we should use an alternative to decoloniality because we are misusing it and we might not be able to follow what it truly is in its essence. So, yeah, that's my question too. I'm not sure if he's here. Okay, he's here.
Yeah, I'm here. So Abhijit Iyer Mitra, I don't usually follow him or I read his tweets and just leave it like that. So the problem with that is just, you read that essay, right? What did you feel like about Balagangadhara? What is he saying? He's just saying that the word is being misused, but the spirit, he represents the spirit of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's just saying that don't throw. So whenever there is taxonomy involved with a word that is not correctly defined or something like that, anybody can use it for any purposes, and they can just cry decolonization. So, for example, what example can I give? So he just says that decolonization has become a blabbering word to just throw across everything and to justify any position of yours. But that is not quite correct. And he says you need to show how whatever your position you're standing